Now let's put all of this together and apply what you've learned. So now that we've learned about alcohol misuse and drug misuse and what your responsibilities are as a supervisor, it's going to be time to apply that knowledge. So this section is going to give you some real world scenarios where you're going to walk through what you would observe and how you would document that and what kind of actions you would take. So each example is going to be based on situations that supervisors commonly face in DOT regulated workplaces. Some are obvious and some are a little bit more subtle. So the goal is to give you some practice so that when you're encountering those situations in real life, you're going to know exactly what to do. Don't worry about having all the answers immediately. Just use each scenario as a chance to think critically and maybe kind of test yourself and reinforce the skills that you have already developed. So imagine a driver reports to work early in the morning, and you immediately are going to notice bloodshot eyes, a strong odor of alcohol on his breath. And when you question him, he's going to say he didn't drink anything that morning, only the night before. And he insists that he's just tired. So as a supervisor, your role is not to argue. The odor and appearance, they're clear, they're observable, they're facts that meet the threshold for reasonable suspicion. And even if he claims not to be drinking on duty, the signs show that he is not fit for safety sensitive work. So your documentation might read, at 6:45 a.m., I observed bloodshot eyes and a strong odor of alcohol on the employee's breath as he reported to duty. That's going to be factual, that's specific, that's defensible. The correct action here is going to be to remove him from duty immediately and then arrange for alcohol testing as soon as possible. And we want to do that within the required 2-hour window. In this scenario, a mechanic is found nodding off at his workstation. His pupils are pinpoint, and when you give him instructions, he's struggling to remember what they are. And these are really clear signs of opioid or sedative misuse. And whether the drugs are prescribed or not, the employee is going to be impaired. And so they cannot continue to safely keep working. So your documentation should describe exactly what you saw. At 2:30 p.m. in the garage, employee was nodding at a workstation, had pinpoint pupils, and could not recall directions just given. So the appropriate action here is removal from duty and immediate testing. And not all impairment is going to look the same. So in this case, an office worker is going to become unusually loud. They're going to make inappropriate jokes, pacing restlessly, and their behavior is disruptive and is very different from their normal demeanor. So as a supervisor, you may not notice those physical signs right away, but behavior is just as important. So loudness, inappropriate humor, restlessness, these are all consistent with stimulant misuse or alcohol impairment. So your documentation might read something like, at 11 a.m. in the office, employees spoke loudly, made inappropriate jokes, and paced around, unable to remain seated. And that example is going to show you why you have to pay attention to unusual changes in behavior, even if the physical signs aren't obvious. So let's say that a worker comes back from break with a strong odor of marijuana on their clothes. You notice that they have slowed reactions, especially when you're giving instructions, and they forget routine steps in a task that they've done a lot of times before. So even if the marijuana is legal in your state, the DOT rules are very clear here. It is not permitted for safety sensitive employees. Your responsibility is to act based on what you observe. So your documentation could state, at 1:15 p.m., employee returned from break with odor of marijuana, delayed response to instructions, and forgot steps in routine tasks. So the removal here and testing are going to be the next steps. So let's say you encounter a driver who is normally calm, and then suddenly they become really irritable, snapping at coworkers without reason, and then later while they're parking the bus, they nearly collide with a piece of equipment. And that behavior may indicate alcohol or stimulant use. Aggression that is combined with a near miss accident is a major red flag, and the employee is not safe to perform. So, as a supervisor, your job isn't to figure out exactly what substance is involved, it's to document the signs and act on that. So, your documentation could read at 8:20 a.m., employee displayed irritability with the coworkers and nearly struck equipment while parking bus. These facts justify removing the driver and initiating the testing. Let's say we have an employee that becomes unusually withdrawn. They're avoiding talking to their coworkers, they're struggling to stay awake during their shift, and their work quality has really started declining steadily over the last week. And so these may be signs of depressant misuse, like opiates or sedatives, and it could be fatigue. The consistency of the pattern suggests something a little bit more, though. So you're going to document what you observe. The employee appeared disengaged, yawned repeatedly, nearly fell asleep at the station, and produced incomplete work. Again, these facts are supporting your decision to act. So now that we've gone over some scenarios, let's just quickly recap alcohol misuse. You learned the physical signs include odor of the alcohol, bloodshot eyes, slurred speech, poor coordination. The behavioral signs are going to be irritability, mood swings, loudness, or drowsiness. And then there's going to be performance issues that are going to matter. So making errors, near misses, and also absenteeism that's connected to alcohol misuse. So by recognizing these patterns, you're going to be able to identify when alcohol is affecting the workplace safety, and you're going to be able to take the right action. Drug use has its own wide array of signs and symptoms depending on the category. So stimulants are going to cause dilated pupils, rapid speech, hyperactivity, and irritability. Depressants like opioids are going to cause pinpoint pupils and drowsiness and slurred speech. Cannabis use is going to show up with odor, slowed reaction time, forgetfulness, poor concentration, things like that. Hallucinogens, these are a little less common, but they can create paranoia, distorted perceptions, and unpredictable reactions. And keep in mind, cannabis is a hallucinogen, so it can create those things. The key here is that you don't really need to know the exact drug. You just need to recognize impairment through either their physical or their behavioral or their performance changes. And once you observe that impairment, the process is always going to be the same. Document, remove them from duty, and arrange for testing. Your role as a supervisor is really clear here. Observe and document. We want to document the specific signs of impairment. You're not diagnosing substance use disorders. You're not acting as a counselor. Once you're observing the signs, remove the employee from duty immediately, and testing needs to be arranged extremely promptly. And always keep confidentiality maintained. When you stick to those responsibilities, you protect safety and you're going to maintain compliance and keep that process fair. And documentation is going to be your strongest protection. Always write specific and factual notes that describe exactly what you observed. Include the time, the place, and the circumstances. We want to avoid labels like drunk or high and instead write down what you saw, what you heard, what you smelled. And those details cannot be challenged, and they're going to stand up in audits or investigations. And when we document well, we're not only protecting ourselves and our company, but we're ensuring that the process is fair to the employee. And when you put everything together, the process becomes really simple. Recognize the signs of the possible misuse, document them carefully, remove the employee from safety-sensitive duties, arrange for testing, and keep everything confidential. Each step is building on the last, and if you miss one, you're putting safety and compliance at risk. So for example, if you recognize the signs but fail to document them, your actions may not hold up during an audit. And safety always has to be the top priority. Employees are going to argue, they may deny, they may try to minimize their behavior, but your responsibility is to protect everyone, the employee, their coworkers, the public, and the company. And that process is going to ensure fairness and compliance and protection for all involved.